When you detach emotionally, something almost magical happens. You become the one they chase. It's a psychological shift that feels counterintuitive at first, but it's deeply ingrained in human nature. People value what they believe they could lose, and men in particular are wired to pursue what is not readily available. The moment you pull back and focus on yourself instead of trying to seek validation, you tap into an attraction dynamic that is far more powerful than any words or gestures you could ever use. Many people make the mistake of thinking that love and relationships are all about giving endlessly, being available at all times, and proving their worth through constant affection. While kindness and care are essential, too much of it, especially too soon, can have the opposite effect. The problem isn't in showing love. The problem is in making yourself so emotionally dependent on someone's reaction that they no longer feel the need to reciprocate. When something is freely given without any effort on their part, it loses its perceived value. This is why so many people, despite their best intentions, find themselves feeling taken for granted or unappreciated. Men are naturally drawn to challenge. And when you detach emotionally, you create a dynamic where he has to step up to prove his worth to you. This doesn't mean playing games or intentionally making someone feel insecure. Rather, it means not handing over your emotional energy so easily. When a woman stops obsessing over whether a man calls, texts, or prioritizes her, she shifts the power back into her hands. He starts wondering what she's doing, why she isn't so readily available, and suddenly she becomes more intriguing. It may feel cruel to withhold your emotions, especially when society often conditions women to be nurturing, open, and giving. But the truth is, being too available emotionally creates an imbalance. The person who gives the most emotionally often ends up being the one who feels the least valued. There's a delicate balance between showing love and maintaining self-respect. If you tip too far into the side of overgiving, you become someone who is easily overlooked because there's no challenge, no tension, no excitement. A man is wired to crave pursuit, and when that pursuit is removed, he loses interest faster than you can imagine. Think about a time when you wanted something badly. Maybe a dream job, an exclusive opportunity, or even an item that was in high demand. The fact that it wasn't easy to obtain made you want it more. This is the same psychology at play when it comes to attraction. When you make yourself too emotionally available, a man doesn't feel the same level of urgency to keep you. But when you create space, when you show that you are whole on your own, that's when his instincts kick in. He starts thinking, I need to secure this before I lose it. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you refuse to let someone else's presence or absence dictate your emotions. The problem many women face is that they attach their happiness to how a man treats them. If he texts, they feel good. If he doesn't, they start spiraling into negative emotions. When you live this way, you're putting your emotional stability in someone else's hands. It is dangerous because it makes you reactive instead of proactive. Instead of building your own life, you start living in response to his actions. The moment you stop reacting, you shift the dynamic entirely. Suddenly, you are the one he is thinking about, the one he is wondering about, the one he can't quite figure out. Why? Because you are no longer predictable. Predictability kills attraction. When he knows exactly how you'll respond, there's no tension, no excitement, no reason for him to step up. But when you pull back, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, he has to rethink his approach. Most people are so afraid of detachment because they associate it with rejection or coldness. But true emotional detachment isn't about being distant, it's about being grounded. It means you can enjoy someone's presence without needing it. You can love without becoming dependent. You can care without sacrificing yourself in the process. Men notice when a woman carries herself with a quiet confidence, when she doesn't get overly excited or devastated based on his actions. That's when he realizes she is different. She isn't like the others who are waiting by the phone, who are readily available at all times, who give all their love without requiring anything in return. She holds herself to a higher standard, and in doing so, she naturally attracts a higher level of effort from a man. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to get because you genuinely have a life that fulfills you outside of a relationship. A man can sense when a woman has her own passions, her own goals, her own sense of fulfillment that doesn't revolve around him. That's what makes her magnetic. When you emotionally detach, you allow a man the space to invest. And when he invests, he values you more. He sees you as a prize, not as a convenience. He starts adjusting his behavior to meet your standards instead of expecting you to lower yours to fit his level of effort. Attraction is not about chasing, it's about creating a space where someone naturally wants to come closer. When you learn to master detachment, you step into a level of power that few truly understand. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's attention, and that shift alone makes you irresistible. When something is rare, it naturally holds more value. This is a fundamental principle of human psychology, and it applies to relationships just as much as it does to material possessions. People tend to desire what they perceive as scarce, exclusive, or hard to attain. This is why luxury brands, limited editions, and exclusive memberships exist, because when something is not easily available, it triggers a deep-seated urge to obtain it. The same logic applies to attraction. When a person is always available, constantly giving, and easily accessible, their perceived value drops. But when they create a sense of scarcity, when their presence feels like a privilege rather than a given, their value rises. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is overgiving. They believe that by constantly being present, responding instantly, and showering the other person with attention, they will win their affection. But the reality is when something is given too freely, it's often taken for granted. This is why people don't always appreciate things they don't have to work for. The more effort someone has to put in to earn something, the more valuable it becomes to them. It's not about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature. Men, in particular, are wired to pursue. They are drawn to things that feel slightly out of reach, things that challenge them. If something is too easy to obtain, the thrill of the chase disappears. This doesn't mean playing games or being unnecessarily difficult. It means having enough self-respect to recognize that your presence is valuable and should not be given away without consideration. When a woman positions herself as someone who is selective with her time and energy, she automatically commands more attention. People often fear that if they pull back, they will lose the person they are interested in. But in reality, the opposite often happens. When someone senses that you are not desperate for their attention, they begin to view you differently. They start questioning why you aren't chasing them like everyone else. They wonder what makes you so self-sufficient, so confident, so independent. And that curiosity alone is powerful. It keeps them engaged, invested, and wanting more. Scarcity is what makes diamonds valuable. If diamonds were as common as pebbles on the street, no one would care about them. Their worth isn't just in their beauty, it's in their rarity. The same applies to people. When you present yourself as someone who is rare, someone who does not give their time, energy, or love to just anyone, you elevate your value. It's not arrogance, it's self-respect. The problem many people face is that they give too much too soon. They meet someone they like and immediately pour all their energy into the connection. They are constantly available, always responding immediately, going out of their way to accommodate the other person's schedule and making that person their top priority. And while their intentions are pure, the effect is often the opposite of what they desire. Instead of drawing the other person in, they push them away. Instead of being appreciated, they are taken for granted. Instead of creating intrigue, they become predictable. Predictability kills excitement. When someone knows exactly what to expect from you at all times, there is no tension, no mystery, no reason for them to put in extra effort. They become comfortable, and comfort can often lead to complacency. This is why relationships sometimes lose their spark, because one person has made themselves so available that the other no longer feels the need to earn their attention. Creating a sense of scarcity doesn't mean ignoring someone or being unnecessarily distant. It means being intentional with your energy. It means recognizing that your time is valuable and should not be given freely to just anyone. It means making sure that the person you are investing in is also investing in you. Too often, people chase those who are not making an equal effort. They overextend themselves, hoping that by giving more, they will receive more in return. But that is not how attraction works. The more you chase, the more the other person pulls away. The more you make yourself available, the less they feel the need to pursue you. This is why people are often drawn to those who are busy, independent, and focused on their own lives. When you have your own passions, goals, and ambitions, you naturally create a sense of scarcity. You are not always available because you have things going on. You are not constantly seeking validation because you are already fulfilled. And this is what makes you magnetic. A person who is deeply engaged in their own life is far more attractive than someone who is just waiting to be chosen. The moment you stop making yourself an option for someone who is not actively choosing you, you shift the entire dynamic. Suddenly they start wondering why you are not as accessible as before. They start questioning why you are not reacting the way others do. And in that moment they realize that you are different. You are not someone they can take lightly. You are not someone who will wait around indefinitely. And that realization makes them step up or step out. Either way, you win. People always value what they believe they might lose. This is why playing hard to get works. Not because it is a game, but because it taps into a fundamental truth about human psychology. When you make yourself scarce, when you show that you are selective, when you communicate through your actions that you are not easily impressed, you create an aura of exclusivity. And exclusivity breeds desire. Many relationships fall apart, not because of a lack of love, but because of a lack of balance. One person is giving too much, while the other is giving too little. And the more one gives, the less the other feels the need to reciprocate. This is why understanding the power of scarcity is so important. When both people feel the need to invest, the relationship remains strong. But when one person takes on all the emotional labor, the connection weakens. There is nothing wrong with wanting love and connection, but love should be mutual, effort should be balanced, and attention should be earned, not just given away without consideration. When you learn to hold back to create space, to make your presence feel like a privilege rather than a right, you naturally attract more respect, more effort, and ultimately more desire. Emotional detachment is often misunderstood. People assume it means shutting off emotions completely, becoming cold or acting indifferent. But true emotional detachment is not about numbness. It's about control. It's about mastering your emotions instead of being controlled by them. It's about being able to engage fully without being consumed. When you learn to detach emotionally, you don't stop feeling. You stop overreacting. You don't stop caring. You stop obsessing. And this shift in energy changes everything. One of the biggest reasons people struggle in relationships is because they become too emotionally invested too quickly. They tie their happiness to another person's actions, waiting for validation, craving reassurance, and constantly analyzing every little sign or signal. This level of emotional dependence makes them vulnerable to disappointment. When someone is too emotionally attached, they begin to operate from a place of fear. Fear of losing the person, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being enough. And when fear is the driving force, it leads to neediness, insecurity, and self-sabotage. Neediness is one of the fastest ways to repel someone. When a person senses that you need them to feel good about yourself, they start to feel pressure. They begin to withdraw. What was once a natural connection starts to feel like an obligation. And the moment something feels forced, the dynamic shifts. It's not that people don't want to be loved. It's that they don't want to feel responsible for another person's entire sense of worth. This is why emotional detachment is so powerful. It removes the burden from the relationship. It allows things to flow naturally without desperation or force. When you are emotionally detached, you are able to walk away if something no longer serves you. You don't beg for attention. You don't cling to what isn't working. You recognize that love should be a choice, not a necessity. And this makes you incredibly attractive. When you detach emotionally, you become unpredictable in the best way. People can no longer predict your reactions, your level of investment, or your emotional dependence. This unpredictability creates intrigue. It makes people wonder what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and whether they truly have you. And that uncertainty is powerful. It keeps them engaged, invested, and wanting more. Too often, people give away their power by reacting emotionally to everything. They let their mood be dictated by how someone else treats them. If they get a text, they're happy. If they don't, they're anxious. If someone compliments them, they feel good. If they don't, they start doubting themselves. This kind of emotional volatility makes a person easy to manipulate. When someone knows that their actions directly control your emotions, they begin to lose respect. They may even start testing boundaries just to see how much control they have over you. Emotional detachment shifts this dynamic. When you are detached, your happiness is not dependent on external factors. Your sense of worth is not dictated by whether someone calls, texts, or compliments you. You remain steady, unaffected, unshaken. This stability makes you stand out. It makes people respect you because they see that you cannot be easily influenced. And respect is a foundation for attraction. Men, in particular, are drawn to women who have emotional control. When a woman is too reactive, too emotionally driven, or too quick to invest, it signals a lack of self-assurance. But when she operates from a place of composure, when she does not get easily rattled or desperate for attention, it triggers a deep sense of admiration. She becomes a challenge, and challenges are enticing. This is not about playing games. It's about knowing your worth. It's about understanding that you should never let someone else dictate your emotional state. When you detach emotionally, you shift the power back to yourself. You no longer seek approval because you already approve of yourself. You no longer crave reassurance because you already know your value. And this internal security changes the way people perceive you. Emotional detachment also allows you to see things more clearly. When emotions run too high, logic often disappears. People ignore red flags, excuse bad behavior, and stay in situations that no longer serve them. But when you are emotionally detached, you can step back and assess things for what they truly are. You can make decisions based on reality, not just emotions. And this prevents you from wasting time on people who do not value you. Many people fear emotional detachment because they associate it with loneliness. But the truth is, detachment doesn't mean isolation. It means freedom. It means you are free from emotional turbulence. It means you can experience love without fear, without desperation, without anxiety. It means you can enjoy connections without losing yourself in them. When you master emotional detachment, you become magnetic. You become the kind of person who is desired, respected, and admired. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with quiet confidence, with self-assurance, with emotional control. It makes them wonder, what makes you so secure, so unshaken, so different from the rest? And that curiosity is what keeps them coming back. Silence is one of the most underrated forms of power. Most people do not realize how much strength there is in saying less, in withholding unnecessary words, in maintaining an air of mystery. In a world where everyone is eager to overshare, to explain themselves, to seek validation through constant communication, the person who masters silence stands out. They command attention without even trying. They attract without chasing. They become a force that others feel drawn to but cannot easily grasp. And when you learn to use silence effectively, you change the way people perceive you. Most individuals operate from a place of emotional impulsivity. They feel the need to respond immediately, to clarify their stance, to justify their emotions. This creates a pattern where they are constantly explaining themselves, constantly seeking reassurance, constantly trying to prove something. But when you refrain from doing this, when you resist the urge to fill every space with words, you disrupt the usual patterns of interaction. You make people wonder what you are thinking, what you truly feel, what you might do next. And that kind of curiosity is powerful. The reality is that people value what they have to work for. When you make yourself too accessible, when you offer every detail of your thoughts and emotions without restraint, you lose a certain level of intrigue. But when you maintain an element of mystery, when you say less and allow others to wonder, you naturally increase your value. You become someone worth figuring out, worth understanding, worth pursuing. One of the most compelling aspects of silence is that it forces others to engage with you differently. When you do not immediately react to situations, people must sit with their own thoughts, their own assumptions, their own feelings. This creates an internal tension that makes you more impactful. They begin to analyze your silence, to assign meaning to it, to wonder what it implies. And this puts you in a position of control. It means that rather than being predictable, rather than giving away your every thought, you allow others to invest energy in trying to understand you. There's a reason why silence is so effective in attraction. When someone is always available, always quick to respond, always eager to engage, there is no challenge. There is no uncertainty. And yet, uncertainty is one of the key drivers of intrigue. When you do not immediately answer a text, when you do not instantly react to situations, when you take your time before giving a response, you create a sense of anticipation. And anticipation fuels attraction. Many people mistake silence for indifference, but the truth is silence is not about a lack of care, it is about control. It is about knowing when to engage and when to step back. It is about recognizing that not everything requires an immediate response, that sometimes the most powerful statement is made through what is left unsaid. When you master this, you begin to shift the way people interact with you. They no longer take your presence for granted. They no longer assume they can always have access to you. They begin to value your words more because they are not given away carelessly. Silence is also one of the best tools for dealing with difficult situations. When emotions run high, most people react impulsively. They say things they later regret. They argue from a place of frustration. They try to prove a point in the heat of the moment. But those who understand the power of silence know that it is often better to pause, to allow space for clarity, to let others reveal themselves before responding. When you withhold an immediate reaction, you prevent yourself from being emotionally manipulated. You force others to sit with their own words, their own actions, their own consequences. And in many cases, this alone is enough to shift the dynamic in your favor. In relationships, silence can be a test of emotional strength. When you are able to walk away without begging for closure, without demanding explanations, without trying to force a resolution, you demonstrate an immense level of self-respect. You show that your peace is not dependent on anyone else's actions. that you do not need constant reassurance to know your worth. This kind of silent confidence is rare. And because it is rare, it is attractive. It makes people realize that they cannot easily shake you, that they cannot manipulate you through emotional games, that they cannot expect you to always be the one to reach out, to fix things, to initiate. Another reason why silence is so powerful is because it allows you to observe. When you talk less, you listen more. You begin to notice things that others overlook. The shifts in tone, the hidden meanings behind words, the patterns of behavior that reveal true intentions. You become more perceptive, more aware, more in control of your own reactions. And this level of awareness gives you an edge in any interaction. The modern world encourages people to be loud, to be constantly visible, to share every thought and feeling openly. But those who truly understand influence know that power often lies in restraint. When you do not give away every detail of your mind, when you allow others to wonder, to anticipate, to question, you hold their attention in a way that words alone never could. Silence, when used correctly, creates impact. It shifts dynamics. It forces others to come to you rather than you always chasing them. It makes you the one who is in control, the one who is centered, the one who holds the power in the interaction. Emotional detachment is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful strategies a person can develop. Most people believe that caring deeply, investing fully, and wearing their emotions on their sleeve is the way to win in relationships, careers, and life. But the truth is, excessive emotional attachment creates weakness. It makes you vulnerable to manipulation, disappointment, and unnecessary suffering. When you become too emotionally involved in situations that are beyond your control, you give others the ability to dictate your mood, your decisions, and even your self-worth. But when you cultivate emotional detachment, you reclaim your power. You free yourself from the need for external validation, and you become immune to the games people play to control and influence those who are too emotionally invested. Emotional detachment does not mean becoming cold or heartless. It means developing the ability to step back and view situations with clarity rather than reacting from a place of pure emotion. It means recognizing that not everything deserves a response, that not everyone is worthy of your energy, and that your peace is more important than temporary emotional gratification. When you master this, you no longer allow yourself to be pulled into unnecessary conflicts. You no longer let the opinions of others define your sense of self, and you no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. Most people attach their happiness to external outcomes. They believe that if they can get someone to love them, if they can receive a certain level of attention, if they can secure a particular job or financial status, then they will finally feel content. But this kind of thinking places power in the hands of others. It creates dependency. It makes you a slave to circumstances that are often unpredictable and beyond your control. When you learn emotional detachment, you begin to shift your focus inward. You understand that real power comes from within, that your value is not determined by how others treat you, and that your happiness cannot be dependent on factors that can change at any moment. One of the greatest advantages of emotional detachment is that it prevents you from overreacting. When you are too emotionally attached, you take everything personally. A delayed text, a change in someone's behavior, a minor inconvenience, all of it feels like an attack on your sense of worth. But when you detach, you realize that most things have nothing to do with you. People act based on their own emotions, their own insecurities, their own struggles. And instead of reacting impulsively, instead of overanalyzing, instead of feeling the need to constantly seek reassurance, you simply observe. You allow people to reveal themselves without interference. And you respond from a place of composure rather than desperation. Another reason why emotional detachment is so powerful is because it increases your ability to walk away, Too many people stay in situations that no longer serve them simply because they are emotionally tied to them. They tolerate disrespect, they accept mistreatment, they make excuses for others' behavior, all because they fear the discomfort of detachment. But when you train yourself to detach, you gain the ability to remove yourself from anything that does not align with your peace, your self-respect, and your overall well-being. You understand that attachment should never come at the cost of your dignity. You recognize that letting go is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. Emotional detachment also makes you more attractive. When you are too emotionally available, when you seek validation, when you display a constant need for reassurance, you become predictable. You become easy to read, easy to control, easy to take for granted. But when you practice detachment, when you are not overly affected by others' actions, when you do not seek approval, you create an aura of mystery. People begin to wonder what is on your mind. They feel the need to work for your attention. They start to view you as someone who is not easily swayed, not easily manipulated, not easily controlled. And that in itself is highly attractive. Many people struggle with detachment because they confuse it with indifference. But true detachment is not about shutting down emotionally. It is about choosing where to invest your energy wisely. It is about recognizing that your peace is more valuable than constantly engaging in emotional chaos. It is about understanding that you can care about someone without allowing them to control your state of mind. It is about learning that you do not have to prove your worth to anyone, and that real self-respect comes from knowing that you are enough, regardless of how others treat you. Another key benefit of emotional detachment is that it prevents unnecessary suffering. When you are too emotionally attached, you overthink. You dwell on things that do not deserve your attention. You replay conversations in your mind, wondering what you could have said or done differently. You allow small situations to consume your thoughts. But when you detach, you stop feeding into this cycle. You develop the ability to acknowledge situations without letting them define you. You learn to accept things as they are rather than as you wish them to be. And in doing so, you liberate yourself from the emotional burdens that keep so many people stuck in patterns of stress, anxiety, and disappointment. In relationships, emotional detachment is often the difference between being respected and being taken for granted. When you make it clear that you are not dependent on someone for your happiness, that you do not need their validation to feel complete, that you are willing to walk away if necessary, you automatically shift the dynamic. People value what they believe they can lose. When they see that you are not desperate for their attention, that you are not waiting for their approval, that you are perfectly fine with or without them, they begin to respect you on a deeper level. They recognize that you are not someone who can be easily manipulated, that you are not someone who will tolerate inconsistency, that you are someone who chooses peace over chaos every time. Emotional detachment is not about avoiding feelings, it is about mastering them. It is about understanding that emotions are temporary and that reacting impulsively often leads to regret. It is about recognizing that your self-worth is not determined by external validation, but by your own inner sense of value. When you learn to detach, you become unshakable. You no longer allow disappointments to break you. You no longer seek approval from people who do not appreciate you. And you no longer waste your energy on situations that do not contribute to your growth. You stand firm in your sense of self, and in doing so, you attract the right people, the right opportunities, and the right circumstances into your life. Silence is one of the most underestimated yet powerful tools a person can use. In a world where people are constantly speaking, sharing, and seeking validation through words, the ability to hold back and remain composed creates an air of mystery and control that is both rare and attractive. Most people feel the need to explain themselves, to justify their actions, or to fill every moment with conversation. They believe that speaking more makes them more understood, more valued, or more respected. But the truth is, power lies in what is left unsaid. When you learn to embrace silence, you gain the ability to influence, to command attention, and to dictate the terms of your interactions without even trying. People are naturally drawn to what they cannot easily access or understand. When you speak less, when you do not feel the need to overshare, when you do not rush to explain yourself, you create intrigue. Others begin to wonder what you are thinking, what you know, and why you are not reacting the way most people would. This simple shift in behavior changes the way you are perceived. Instead of appearing desperate for attention or validation, you appear confident, self-assured, and in control. People find themselves wanting to know more, to engage with you on a deeper level, to earn your words instead of having them freely given. When you are always speaking, you reveal too much about yourself. You give people insight into your thoughts, your emotions, your weaknesses. The more they know, the more they can predict, control, and manipulate your reactions. But when you choose to remain silent, you take that power away from them. You force them to second guess, to wonder, to analyze every little detail. They cannot pin you down, they cannot categorize you, and most importantly, they cannot use your words against you. Silence protects you. It shields your inner world from unnecessary exposure, allowing you to observe and assess situations before making any moves. Silence also makes you more respected. People take notice of those who do not speak unless necessary. When you only speak when you have something important to say, your words carry weight. Others listen more attentively because they know that when you do speak, it is meaningful. This is the difference between those who are constantly talking but never truly heard, and those who are silent yet command attention when they choose to break that silence. The less you speak, the more people value what you do say. Another powerful aspect of silence is its ability to unsettle people. Most individuals are uncomfortable with silence because it forces them to sit with their own thoughts, their own emotions, and their own insecurities. When you refuse to react, when you remain composed in situations where others expect you to respond emotionally, it creates discomfort in them. They start to wonder if they have miscalculated, if they have lost your interest, if they no longer have control over the situation. This is why silence is such an effective strategy in personal relationships, business negotiations, and social interactions. When you are silent, you shift the dynamic. You create an environment where others feel the need to fill the space, to prove themselves, to seek your approval. Silence also prevents you from making impulsive mistakes. When you react too quickly, you risk saying things that you might later regret. You might reveal too much, agree to something without thinking it through, or let your emotions dictate your response. But when you practice silence, you give yourself time to process, to analyze, and to make decisions from a place of clarity rather than impulse. This not only prevents misunderstandings and unnecessary conflicts, but also ensures that you always act in alignment with your best interests. People who are overly expressive often find themselves in positions of weakness. They get caught up in unnecessary arguments. They waste time explaining themselves to people who do not truly care, and they allow their emotions to be easily read and manipulated. But those who master the art of silence move differently. They understand that not every situation requires a response, that not every challenge needs to be addressed, that not every opinion deserves a reaction. They choose when and how to engage, and in doing so, they maintain control over their interactions. Another significant advantage of silence is that it allows you to observe more than you reveal. When you are quiet, you notice details that others miss. You pick up on body language, on tone shifts, on inconsistencies in what people say versus what they actually do. You become a better judge of character because instead of focusing on expressing yourself, you are focusing on understanding others. This gives you an edge in every area of life because knowledge is power, and the more you know about the people around you, the better equipped you are to navigate relationships and situations effectively. Silence also teaches patience. Most people feel the need to react instantly, to respond in the moment, to defend themselves the second they feel challenged. But those who embrace silence understand the power of waiting. They do not feel the need to justify themselves immediately. They do not rush to defend their position. They do not let emotions push them into saying things they might later regret. Instead, they let time work in their favor. They allow people to reveal their true intentions, to show their true colors, to make their own mistakes. By staying silent, they gain clarity and make more informed decisions. One of the most fascinating aspects of silence is how it shifts energy. When you refuse to engage in unnecessary conversations, when you do not react emotionally, when you are not constantly seeking approval, you create a space where others must meet you on your terms. They feel the absence of your words. And in that absence, they become more aware of their own behaviors. They start to recognize when they are overstepping, when they are seeking validation, when they are trying too hard to get a reaction from you. This, in turn, makes them more conscious of how they interact with you. People who understand the power of silence do not beg for attention. They do not chase, they do not plead, they do not explain themselves to those who do not value them. Instead, they let their absence speak louder than any words ever could. They understand that silence creates curiosity, that it builds intrigue, that it makes others work harder to gain their presence. The moment you stop talking, people start listening. The moment you stop reacting, people start wondering. The moment you stop explaining, people start realizing what they took for granted. When you truly embrace silence, you free yourself from the need to prove anything to anyone. You recognize that your worth is not dependent on how much you say or how often you are heard. You understand that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is saying nothing at all.